For those of you who may have joined as we were already started in progress, we are recording the session. If you have questions as we're going through our presentation, please feel free to take yourself off mute and ask them, or you can use the chat panel on the Go to Training control panel. So we will now perform the intricate changing of presenter.
Okay.
Over to you, and you let me know if you should see that.
Can you see my screen?
I can. Everybody can see that? Just someone confirm for me? I mean, I can see it, so hopefully everybody else can.
I can see it.
Great.
Perfect.
Great, thank you. So thanks, Cecile, and thanks, Kevin, and congratulations to you both and the rest of Close Reach on the extension of your operations into the U.S. Look forward to working with you here as well. That's very exciting news. And thank you for giving me the opportunity really to introduce the group to InteractCoach. I very much appreciate the partnership with Close Reach and of course with Jacob and his team from QualiWare. And thank you all for being here and listening to me. And with that, let's begin. As Cecile said, please feel free to ask questions during the course of the presentation, and we should have some time at the end to ask some then as well. So with that, let's talk about why we're here. It's really all about how to extend the value of QualiWare in your organization. And I'm going to be focusing primarily on how we can help you optimize your customer's experience, and with it help you reduce your operating expense and some other areas as well. But those are going to be our key focus. The agenda is going to obviously include an explanation of what is InteractCoach and why it's important, why is customer experience so important. I'll give you a live demo of InteractCoach in QualiWare, and we'll talk about the benefits to your customers and to your agencies. And we'll explore how our proven methodology makes it all possible. Finally, we'll address what you'll need to implement and talk about a proof of concept and invite you to hopefully participate in one with us. So what is InteractCoach? As the name implies, it's a tool that helps coach or guide your frontline employees. These are the folks that interact with your customers every day, incessantly, whether it's by phone or email or chat, SMS, whatever. These folks are the face of your organization, and that makes them very important people. What we've done is combine QualiWare's out-of-the-box visual models with our proven methodology, and we've developed a solution that trains these agents so that they can train faster without the need for a lot of drilling and memorization. It empowers them to solve your customers' problems faster and completely and make them more satisfied and happier. And it also gives the agents a voice to share their and their customers' ideas on how they can improve these interactions. So why is enhancing the customer experience so important? There have been a multitude of studies, primarily in the private sector, talking about how improved customer experience drives revenue, how it drives customer loyalty and satisfaction. I mean, pretty striking numbers here. 89% of customers will switch their loyalty, go to another company if they have a poor customer experience. Their costs are diminished. And there are a couple of other studies. Here's one in particular that shows that customer experience leaders outpace laggards 3-to-1 in terms of impressive. Improving customer experience is not just for the sector. The fact is that companies like Disney and Uber and Apple raised consumers' expectations for customer experience. And these have spilled over to the public sector. So a customer or a client of yours having a negative experience with your agency may not have the option to jump ship, but they can certainly let the world know how they feel on social media. So great customer experience inoculates you to a certain degree from these sorts of negative press and to some degree the regulatory pressures. And again, they help drive your budgetary goals. So if customer experience is so important, why are we seeing more success stories? In fact, we've seen some very mixed results, as you can see. It's clear that not only in the private sector, but in the public sector as well, that there's a high failure rate, 80% for government transformations compared to 70% for the private sector. So we have to ask ourselves, what went wrong? And if we're going to course correct, we need to figure out what went wrong and what we can do about it. So here are a few things that we've observed over years of consulting in this space. The first one is using wrong and invalid metrics, rather. And this occurs frequently when an organization loses focus on the prize, successful customer outcomes. Now, most organizations have visions, missions, and goals, and they're glowingly focused on, excuse me, successful customer outcomes. But to make them real, the organizations really need to ensure that their metrics are aligned with the vision, missions, and goals. And simply put, they've got to make sure that they validly reflect the actual impact on the customer and the organizational impacts. And that's frequently where we see them falling down. Next one, lack of senior management support. And I don't think I have to spend much time explaining to you guys. Everybody knows that any initiative without the senior management behind it is doomed to failure. And we don't believe in just saying, well, trust me, it's going to work. Rather, we believe that we need to prove it through proofs of concept that are rapid, that don't take up a lot of resources, and we gain the commitment of senior management by doing it that way. The next one, rush to implement silver bullet technologies. Everybody's chasing the next shiny object. And look, QualiWare at one time was the next shiny object, and that proved out pretty good for most people. But the fact is, before you go there, before you go to the next shiny object, you should look at what you got. What does your existing technology do for you? And that's one of the lessons from today, is that you can take QualiWare and take it to the next level in terms of improving your customer relationships and their experience. So it's really a question of balancing technology, people, and process. Next, solutions that under and over deliver to customers' needs and wants. Well, everybody knows the risks associated with under delivering. Over delivering is an issue as well. You don't want to waste resources on delivering more than customers' needs. So what you need to do is focus on understanding what their desired outcomes are. And you do that by talking to your customers. You do that by talking to those frontline agents who talk to your customers day in, day out. They really know the lifeblood of your organization and what your customers are thinking. And then you anticipate needs and you test and validate them. And you've got to do this constantly because they're constantly evolving. And then finally, agents aren't equipped to meet customers' needs. And that's a particular area that we're looking forward to introducing a solution to, which is by providing through InteractCoach just-in-time information that's accurate and complete and up to date, and will help resolve your customers' issues quickly and satisfactorily. So I'm about to go into a live demo of InteractCoach, but before I do, I just want to explain some of the key principles to keep your eye out for. Keeping it simple. So a lot of policies and procedures manuals are written by lawyers and accountants, and in language that is hard to understand for both the agent and for the customer. So we try to make sure we translate things so it's simple. We make sure that the fundamental training concepts are embedded within our workflows so that this isn't something that people walk out of the training class and forget within a day or so. And then finally, we make sure that everything that we do in terms of our workflows and our guidelines are around successful customer outcomes and successful outcomes for the organization. We do that by defining what those desired outcomes are at the get-go, and then we build the set of activities and business rules that drive to those outcomes. So with that, so bear with me. We go to a demo. So a little setup here, a little context. So this demonstration uses publicly available information from the public sector, Department of Motor Vehicles in the US. And it illustrates how InteractCoach actually addressed some real problems confronted by a client of ours in the private sector. So in this company, customer interactions were managed by telephone agents as well as face-to-face agents and storefronts where people could walk in and try to execute their transactions via driver's licenses, registrations, titles, what have you. Both of these types of agents were having a hard time accessing and explaining complex information to their customers. And in particular, the face-to-face agents and their customers were complaining that they're not being told by the call center agents the proper documentation they needed when they went to visit an office. And it caused problems because they'd have to come back again with the proper documentation. So a waste of time for everybody. Further, we were told that the transfer of title upon death of the vehicle owner was considered one of the most difficult tasks that the agents and the customers had to handle. So we built a business process network here just to illustrate this, and something similar is used by the agents. Death transfer, let's drill down on this particular. I was on this for a while, so it took a little longer to load. So over here we have key definitions, and the reason it's here is a lot of these terms are unfamiliar to both the agent and to the customer. Who knows what a letters of administration are? Well, they can just hop on this definition and find out. Customer may be asking about probate, so they can find out the answer to the definition of what probate is. And in point of fact, customers don't necessarily follow a linear path when they're talking to agents. So having this information available is very useful to the agents and to the customers. So on the left side for this, you can see we have activities, and each of these activities, the ones that have shadow, have something behind them. So here is an example of embedding, once again, what we train people. One of our lessons is how to use owner, a joint owner, single owner, what have you. And if they don't have the information, they can click on an external URL and get that information very quickly through a form there. They can look at a picture and guide the customer through the determining the ownership issue in that manner. So I've illustrated a couple of different paths here that we can go down. Obviously I haven't done them all, but let's just pick single owner. So the first thing we do is, ask them qualifying questions. Are they from Florida? If they're not from Florida, we've got to send them down a different path, to an out-of-state path. If they are from Florida, we continue the qualifying questions. We tell them what an estate is, what letters of administration are. We tell them next steps that they have to do, what they'll need to bring in. We can go to a copy of the form that they need to fill out. We can look up fees for them. Again, linking to external documents through a URL. So here are the fees. And then finally, this is part of our training again, how it's embedded. This is how we tell them through this acronym how to end the call. I'm going to walk through one other scenario, and then we can move on from there. Providing you a little context here. So this next set of workflows, we're further demonstrating how we reinforce the key concepts from agent training throughout the workflows. Here we've embedded the concepts from what we call our Becoming a Better Detective training module. And this module teaches the agents to probe for customer needs to completely satisfy their issues and hopefully preempt the need for a future callback or a future visit. So in this scenario, a customer is called and they've indicated that they have a boat and they're moving from South Carolina to Florida and they want to register that boat. So let's go down that path. So again, a series of qualifying questions leading to providing information to the customer about what their fees are going to be, what they need to bring. And that's right here is frankly where most agents end. They were asked by the customer how to do the boat registration, and they give them the information. But what we've done in InteractCoach is guide them through this process of becoming a better detective, probing for more information that can help the customer avoid having to do multiple trips or make multiple calls. So if you've got a boat, Mr. Jones, you likely need a boat trailer and a plate for that. If so, let's go down that path. And if you, once we provide that information to them here, we go further and say, well, if you've got a boat and a boat trailer, odds are you're going to be doing some fishing. And if you want to do some fishing, you're going to need a license. So let's explore what the licenses are. We'll give you the information as to which licenses you need and what they're going to cost you. And it goes on from there. We didn't in this illustration go down this path, but we would ask, are you going to take people out for charters? Because if you are, you need a captain's license. And then we go on to tell you, we'll be happy to make an appointment and then end the call. Any questions along the way here?
Hi, it's Carol.
Hi, Carol.
Hi, great job. Really nice visuals and really like what you're doing. But isn't it something that can be done directly in QualiWare? Like when you use the business process network diagram, can you just basically build this intelligence with QualiWare alone?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's built on QualiWare. There's nothing proprietary about this other than the methodology we use to help you build it. And I'll get into that in a little bit. Okay, but
Sounds
it's a good question. It's a fair question. You can do it on your own, but we have a lot of experience. I got 30 years experience doing contact center work and about 20 years experience in business process. So I know many of you have business process, but it's the combination which is really helpful. And I think when I get to the demo of how we implement our methodology, I think you'll see the value in that.
Okay.
So the thing that we found interesting, in talking with Michael about this and looking at this, this is straight out of the box. And if you look at where he's presenting, he's in the web, he's in a browser. So in a QualiWare X environment, this could be a collaboration user, or if you're going to have them actually fill out forms, it could be a plus user, to make that, if there's things that agent is actually doing, other than just conveying information. So, but out of the box, no additional customizations required other than building the models themselves.
Okay, any other questions? Okay, go back to the presentation.
And by the way, if anybody does have a question and they're shy about speaking up, just feel free to put it in the chat and I'll jump in and ask Michael.
Okay, thank you, Cecile. So why did we develop InteractCoach? Because frankly, we based it on our experience with several call center scripting systems that we've worked through with over the years. And what we found is that they're not well integrated with training. They're very linear. They're often dead-ended so that a call center agent, if they go down the wrong path, would have to start all over again. They're one size fits all. Veterans resented having to walk through low-level detail intended for novices. And they didn't close the loop, which is what we call, tying it in, integrating the training, integrating it into the workflows, integrating that into performance reviews, coaching, remediation. And what we end up with is the ability to train faster, interact more intelligently with your customers. And I'll break it down a little bit for you. So in terms of training faster, we talk about accelerating time to exceptional performance and not just competent performance. Because our feeling is that on their very first call, even a novice should be able to handle a complex issue correctly and completely. And during training, they don't waste time being drilled on and memorizing a mountain of facts or how to find and interpret information in multiple documents and resources. They just need to be shown how to navigate and InteractCoach, which is intuitive and simple and can be picked up really in minutes. So that allows us to do training, to have training focused on some of the soft skills, areas that are often ignored. So how to and when to use empathy and sympathy, how to control a call, how to manage an irate customer, and so on. So Carol, this is where some of our expertise and methodology comes to bear. In terms of interacting smarter, you saw the demonstration. It's really about providing information when it's needed at the right level for either a veteran or a novice agent. The information is updated in real time, which is very unlike the way it is in most call centers, which rely on a pre-shift meeting. It's conveyed orally. Sometimes an email is sent. This information is frequently lost and never properly conveyed to customers once that scenario is over, whether it's an email or whether it's a briefing and a verbal sharing of information. So, and we create a single source of the truth rather than rely on a multitude of different documents and procedure manuals and so forth. So it allows the agents to accurately communicate and completely communicate, as you saw, as we drilled down on successive questions and probing. They get to complete and they get to first contact resolution, so they don't have to be escalated to a supervisor or a higher tier. The solution comes right away. So performing better, reducing costs. Well, you know, if we're accelerating training and productivity, we've reduced the amount of time spent drilling on memorization for both initial, but also for updated training. As I said, you know, when there are new policies and procedures, so that's reducing costs. It's improved productivity is reducing costs because the ramp to exceptional performance is short, and therefore they're being more productive more quickly, and it's going to save money. There are fewer callbacks necessary. The customer gets the right information the first time, they don't have to call back. And agents don't have to transfer calls to a higher tier or to a supervisor for help, which is certainly what most novice agents start out doing. They won't need to do that anymore. Greater workforce scheduling flexibility is really important because you can have more universal agents. It means you don't have to have all these tiers. You don't have to have these specialized groups, which when it comes to scheduling is very time consuming and expensive. It's very expensive to have specialized groups. So the less you have, the more money you can save. And of course, you know, there's an opportunity to increase revenue. Many of you don't, you know, focus on revenue. Some of you have fees and taxes that you collect, so it is important for you. Employee engagement is important for everybody. Satisfied employee improves his performance or her performance dramatically, increases customer satisfaction dramatically. So that's a critical component. And of course, one of the benefits is improved compliance. So I'm going to talk about a real world scenario with the CRA, and I know some of you are present, so please forgive me, but it happens to be a really good example to learn from. And I will put the caveat in that you guys have made great progress over the last couple of years in addressing these issues, but they do give us an opportunity to see, you know, where the opportunities are for improvement. Here we have the Auditor General telling us that agents had a hard time finding information when responding to questions, and that they use as many as 29 different applications for individuals and 25 businesses. It's a pretty staggering number. We've seen similar elsewhere. They're not alone. So I performed the function of a mystery caller. I called the CRA business line and I explained, hey, I'm a US citizen. I want to do business in Canada. What are my tax obligations? And here's a summary. I talked to a first agent. They transferred me, took nearly 48 minutes. Agents researching offline for about 23 minutes. Total call duration was nearly 2 hours. And the bottom line is nobody could answer my questions. They had to set up a callback. So I got the call back and the agent seemed pretty knowledgeable, but the fact is he missed a couple of key questions that would have disallowed the treaty exemption waiver, which would have not been a good outcome for me, nor for the CRA. So I'm going to go back and give a quick demo again of what this looks like in InteractCoach. Okay, I'm not gonna go down every path here, but you can see we ask a series of qualifying questions. We click on it and it explains the information necessary to convey to the customer. You know, are the days in your current contract 180 more? That's one of the things that the guy missed. Will you have an office, a permanent establishment? Well, that's defined, and that question is certain to be asked. It was not asked of me. Will you have a dependent agent? Again, that's explained. And then finally, if all the answers drove down to here, I would be told that I was eligible for the waiver, and this is what I have to submit. And then we could send an email with the appropriate links if that was appropriate.
We thought you'd like this example, Sue.
Okay.
I have nothing to do with telephone inquiry, so you're good to destroy it or compliment it as much as you like.
Good to go. Good to go. As I said, there has been dramatic improvement since the audit. But lessons to be learned, and there will be one more that I'm going to show you in a moment. But now I want to focus on how our methodology amplifies the benefit of the tool. So Carol, this is for you and the rest of you. We're going to start with this essential first step. So as I've said, we often see well-meaning vision, mission, and goals, but they're frequently, all too frequently, completely undermined by mismatched metrics and inconsistencies. So what I did here was I took a QualiCar scenario. This is something that QualiWare put together, and I expanded upon it. So I created the vision and mission for this fictitious rental car company, just to demonstrate how we would review and refine if necessary. Often we don't have to refine vision and mission. When we get to objectives, it's a little bit different. So then we drill down to what are the desired outcomes of the customer. This is, you'll hear me repeat this again and again, this is critical. What are their desired outcomes? You've got to know what they are if you're going to be able to deliver against them. And we've got to know what the business outcomes are. And Kevin, yes, you caught me. There's a typo here. So apologize for that. What are the desired employee outcomes? They're key too, as I mentioned earlier. A happy employee yields happy customers and much better performance overall. And then we call into KPIs. What are the metrics? And they're directly linked. And we look at validating them at every opportunity. And we do that regularly. And there are ways that they can be invalidated. And that comes to incentives. If you incentivize your people the wrong way, they may do bad things, and they may get results that appear to be good that aren't good. They're invalid. So that's all part of the expertise that we bring and part of our methodology. Any questions on any of this so far?
Michael, I do have a question, but it's not related to this, so I'm just going to hold it until you're finished this particular section.
Okay, good. Get to it momentarily.
Michael, I have a question, Eric Sheet with D&D National Defense in Canada here. I guess what you're showing us here today is really, combining two I guess disciplines is the discipline of business architecture, the business itself, and using the tool just to map the business requirements from a strategic point of view down into the tactical end where you're actually looking at the outcomes of the clients. I guess we follow the same methodology where we look at, we're a service delivery type organization. We're a test agency for the Canadian Armed Forces where we have a test sequence, and based on a laboratory taking a sample from a test from I guess a client, is that we bring in the sample to our laboratories, and based on the analysis, there's a business process network of 11 tests. And based on the output of one test, we'll feed into a decision tree to the input of the following test. and or the sequence of tests that are required. So I guess I'm just trying to figure out what you're trying to convey is the business, or using the tool to to align the business. Or like we do this almost every day, what you're talking about, and I think a lot of people do this, but what exactly are your services that you provide through the Interact Coach? Are you taking the methodologies from a business point of view and being able to coach people to come up with these diagrams and these types of decision trees, or are you just trying to show us an example of how to use the tool? Like I'm not fully grasping what exactly Interact Coach can bring to bear.
Okay, fair question. So it is the melding of the tool. So QualiWare's out there, you guys use it, singing to the choir, you know how to do these things. What we bring is expertise in a particular area, which is having to do with how companies or agencies interact with their customers and clients. So that's where we have an enormous amount of experience in identifying specifically breaches between or gaps between vision, mission, objectives, metrics, and incentives. So, I mean, that's a skill set that we bring to the party. And then we facilitate this process. So yes, it is improving the business in terms of taking that high level vision and mission, driving it down to tactical implementation, and improving very specifically your relationship with your customers and your clients. So it's a very specific focus. And again, I think as we go through it, I think you'll see how our methodology and our experience comes to bear further through this. But does that answer your question? I'm not.
Yeah, so I guess just to summarize, is you provide a service where you can come in and look at the as-is process and look at possibly the pain points and optimization areas, and then you could suggest a better outcome for clients based on your assessments of as-is to a to-be process.
Very much that, but also a great deal of facilitation, discussion across all levels of management down to the frontline employees, and then facilitating sessions to improve, the as-is. And I'll get into a demonstration of that in just a moment. But we have a great deal of expertise, particularly in contact center customer care. So that's our focus. That's pretty much what we bring to the party. But in the process, we have this top-down approach, which many of you may use and some of you may not. But let's go through it and see what else we can help you with potentially. So this potential gap between vision, mission, and metrics is expressed here. So again, this is the CRA, why it's so important. So nothing wrong with the vision, nothing wrong with the mission. The promise is great, and guiding principles, you'll get no argument from me, or I don't think anybody else. I'll take the time to read this. This is the CRA Taxpayers Bill of Rights. It's a right to complete, accurate, clear, and timely information. And that's what we're all about, okay? So there are organizations that have some difficulty, that have these gaps. We help them bridge these gaps, and we use QualiWare as a tool to get there. But it's really our expertise in identifying the gaps and then correcting for those gaps that we bring to the party. Okay, so in this example, goals and metrics appear to be aligned. The expected result, clients have access to timely and accurate responses to their inquiries. That's right on. Their key performance indicator, respond to calls in the agent queue within 2 minutes, 80% of the time. In the private sector, that wouldn't be particularly aggressive. In the public sector, it's a pretty darn good target. And the results were that they exceeded their KPI. And they handled over 19 million calls in a year, which seems very impressive. The problem is, again, the Auditor General found that the agency reported that they met its targets, but in point of fact, their measures weren't accurate, they weren't complete. and the results were overstated. So what went wrong? Let's break it down. The KPI, respond to calls in the agent queue within 2 minutes, 80% of the time. Here are the results. 53.5 million calls were received. Of those, however, 64% were blocked. So what's wrong here? Well, a seemingly really good KPI is not so good if you explore it closely. And this is the expertise that we bring. So we know that when you respond to calls in the agent queue within 2 minutes, that's great, except 64% of the calls may not reach the queue because they're blocked. So calls over 2 minutes were blocked. It enabled CRA to report that they were reaching their goals, but 36% of the calls were never answered. I'm sorry, 36% of the calls were answered, 64% were blocked. And of the 36 that were answered, applying this KPI, which says percentage of accurately updated internal reference materials, 100%, that seems like a good KPI. The results, however, were of the 36% of the calls that were answered, fully 30% of those were answered incorrectly. And here's the flaw here. So the percentage of accurately updated internal reference materials was 100%. Well, that's necessary, but not sufficient. So you can update your internal reference materials. You may even send an email to your agents. You may have a pre-shift meeting to explain it to them. But if they don't retain them, if they don't have the information at the right time, it's not going to work. So in the end, out of 53.5 million calls received, a little over a quarter of them were answered correctly. So this is what we do. I wish we could have done it earlier to help the CRA, but we're willing to help organizations like the CRA and the rest of you folks improve the way you interact with your customers in ways that, yes, you may be great business architects, but you may not have the expertise in this particular arena. So redesigning the customer journey is the next step. And again, you guys know about as is, you may do this. I think our approach is a little unique in this regard. So, we start off with the customer journey. We have facilitated sessions. We have individual interviews, group interviews, and we map out, who is the role, the key role we're looking at here, the rental customer. We look at the stages of the journey. We look at the goals during the journey, and of course the interaction channels and all the touch points within. And then we do what we do best, which is we facilitate what we call a pinpoint to pain point sessions. And we meet with generally groups of management people, some senior management, middle managers, right down to the agents who are on the phone. And we identify what are the pain points and what are the gain points or the missed opportunities. And yes, what we're doing is facilitating. We're also contributing our expertise in the process of identifying what these are. And then we take all of these and we create themes of the pains and the gains. So this is the pool. This is a small example. Sometimes we generate hundreds of new ideas and then we organize them into themes. Here's just a simple example: a theme for training, a theme for customer inconvenience. We might have 7 or 10 such themes. And then we go to the point of mapping the as should be. It's not the to be, but it's the as should be. And we call it that because it's kind of the idealized representation of what the to be should be, if you follow me. So it's absent any constraints. So what we're trying to do is develop a North Star and say, this is what we want to aim for. We don't want to hear about that this got in the way and we tried this before and it didn't work. Not at this stage. This is blue sky. We want to see where we can take this and be as creative as we possibly can. So we consider creating different personas. The most valuable player, a business and a pleasure customer in this scenario. We add multiple types of interaction channels. Again, this is what our expertise is. We have multiple different types of touch points and ways that we can interact to make customers happier with the product, with the service, and to retain them. So that's what we do. And then we go back and we say, okay, what did we learn from this? We probably didn't learn anything that's going to change vision, mission, objectives, but by golly, there's probably some things that we need to add in terms of metrics and incentives. So we do that work. We facilitate that work. And the next thing we do is design a proof of concept. And we work, again, it's a collaboration, and it depends on the organization. In some organizations, it might be appropriate to take a call center agent and turn them into an architect. We've done it. It can be extremely effective, but they need some training. So we would provide that training. If you guys provide it internally, that's something you could do internally. We define the roles and responsibilities. We map it out, and we use standard governance workflows that are available to us. But believe me, we have some expertise in how to connect the dots in this that I think is very valuable. We, to the extent necessary, we collaborate with and will train your folks in terms of how to build the models and the workflows. Again, there's a methodology to this. It's not just cut and paste from documents. It's all about identifying those desired outcomes for the customer and other key stakeholders, and then building the activities and layering in the business rules. Again, some of you may do this stuff, some of you may not, but it's in the context of interacting with customers. That's our expertise. And then we, again, I mentioned, we develop the training. So we have training about, becoming a better detective, how to use empathy. I mean, this is all part of the package of what InteractCoach is. We redesign the agent training so that it leverages multimedia like this. And then finally, we help implement and continually improve from there. So now this training becomes embedded. Training to how to become a better detective is now built into QualiWare. So we have sample calls. And we know how to find sample calls, good examples. We create PowerPoint tutorials. We have videos of what a good interaction should look like. And we enable agents to explore the diagrams as part of their training. And then we close the loop. First, for the proof of concept, we're looking at measuring, making sure that whatever we're measuring is driving to actual customer behavior. These are the outcomes that we want to measure. We monitor very closely. We gather feedback from agents and customers, and that feeds into an incremental and iterative way of introducing improvements. And then once we've done all that, we do it again for the rollout, and we continuously improve. So that's in a nutshell what we do. Before we talk about the possibility of a proof of concept, does anybody have any further questions?
I have one from Stephen Fry. And Stephen was asking if an organization is focusing transformation, for example, IT support, on issue management and a supporting system that is in part looking to reduce the personal call support delivery model, how does this map or connect into such a scenario?
Well, I'll be happy to take that offline. I'll talk to you briefly. I mean, I did a presentation a year ago in Ottawa on just that subject for improving ITSM. Yeah, I mean, you want to reduce the number of calls, and there's a multitude of ways of doing that through different channels of interaction. And going through the pinpoint the pain point sessions with your people, with your IT department, with the people on the ITSM desk, with the agents that are actually handling the interactions, and with the customers, most importantly. Through that collaboration, we identify the pain points and the opportunities to interact better, with fewer need for calls, with better ability to resolve the call or the contact in the first interaction, and the whole process that I described, you know, the measurement, the evaluation, the performance evaluation of the agents who are handling the interactions, and the coaching that they receive from their supervisors who are monitoring them. This is all part of the package. This is all part of what we contribute. This is the closed loop that we talk about. Does that answer your question, Steve, or through chat, however?
Yes, actually, yes, and it sort of seems to be, this is kind of exactly what you've been talking about. So Stephen's audio is not working, he put in the chat, so
okay.
say, you know, fair enough, thank you. I also have, Walter, you have your hand up. Is that because you wanted to ask a question?
Yes, my name is Walter Seeger. I happen to be the architect for all Government of Canada call centers, contact centers, and I was participated in upgrading the CRA call centers to new technology. I did not do the call scripting, but I did the actual call center technology. And so this talk is very interesting for me. I guess my comment is people who think that 30% error rate on calls is large should realize that previously it was much larger. And in fact, 30% is a big improvement to what it was. And I guess, you know, my question here is that this is basically the automation or replacement of call scripts, right? Traditionally, agents have, you know, on the wall a large flow diagram which says, okay, you do this and that and if and then else. And I guess, what level of improvement have you seen between, you know, a call script which is pasted on the wall in front of an agent versus this automated approach using QualiWare?
An enormous difference. I have never, in 30 years of working in call centers, worked with agents who have liked most of the call scripts that they've worked with. As I said, they tend to be very linear. Anything that's posted up on a board, I mean, you've got the issue of visibility. You've got the issue that, you know, at the CRA, for example, you've got 29 different resources, applications that are being tapped for, I think it was for citizens, and then 25 for businesses, as I recall. I mean, you can't put those on a board. I mean, I've seen them use sophisticated and very expensive branch logic systems and have hated them. And I think we address a lot of that by virtue of the fact that, you know, where we have implemented this, it is immediately adopted by newbies as well as veterans, because they can all look at it at the level that's appropriate to them. They know they're getting updated information. They don't have to keep it in their heads. They don't have to keep in notebooks by their desks. You know, it's just, and the ability to learn this, to navigate it is a matter of minutes.
Thank you for your reply. As far as the previous questions about how to decrease interactions, one of the nice things of an approach like this is that the agent themselves can try and figure out why the client was unable to do the things that they needed to do from, let's say, a website. So they could take suggestions from the clients on how to improve the website. And in fact, whenever I go to a call center, I always make a suggestion on how the organization can improve their both their call center and their website. Thank you. That's all for me.
Thanks, Walter. I mean,
thank you, Walter.
That's a great comment. So if we're ready to move on, were there any more questions?
Well,
no, not. Oh, okay.
I just hope that you guys are going to work with the Phoenix people and get their stuff together, because there's a heck of a backlog going on there, I'll tell you that.
Well, I would love to do that. Yeah, would absolutely love to do that. So send them our way. So with that, let me talk
Elizabeth Earl, tell us who to talk to.
I have no idea.
I'm mapping as fast as I can.
This is Walter Seeger. If you send me an email, I can give you a contact name.
Well, that's great.
We'll certainly do that. Thank you. Okay, let's keep going.
Okay,
right? So that's
my area. My area is looking at the new processes and the process with 9.2 upgrade. So we'll see.
Great.
Okay. All right. Ready to move on, everyone? Okay. So conducting a proof of concept or Pathfinder project, as many of you call it. Basically, it's a question of identifying what are your toughest questions. What are the ones that your agents are stumbling over, that your customers are least happy with, that happen the most frequently. Then we'll collaborate with your subject matter experts to design some workflows, and then we'll agree on measures of success, things like accuracy, time on task, escalation percentages, system usability scale. Those are just a few, but we'll collaborate in that and come to it. And we'll conduct a controlled test, and the results, we should be able to do this in 2 to 4 weeks, depending on availability of your personnel. So next, what you need: a standard out-of-the-box version of QualiWare 10, version 10 installation, which I think you all have. And then 1 or more architect licenses. The templates are the ones that I've demonstrated for you here. There are probably some more that we could tap. A few plus licenses for subject matter experts and reviewers, so that they can complete forms, so that they can actually modify some of the workflows and make recommendations. And of course, collaboration licenses, so that the agents can actually view the workflows and do their work and respond with ideas and comments through governance workflows. Any questions here?
Sorry, it's Carol. One of the things that I'm seeing missing perhaps in your list of templates would be forms. Instead of having to pop up that are very busy and sometimes long to read, I would propose or recommend that forms are implemented as part of this solution.
A great suggestion and absolutely appropriate. We agree. Totally agree. Anything else?
Yes, this is Alexandre. I wonder in how many organizations have you been implementing this using QualiWare?
We've only fully implemented it once. It was very successful, but now we're beginning to roll out. We're very anxious to do proofs of concept. It'll be a minimal effort on the part of those participating, and I think you'll find the results to be dramatic and obvious.
Okay.
But InteractCoach has been doing this stuff for quite a few years, just not combined with the QualiWare tool set.
Yes, I mean we've been using QualiWare offline for years. We haven't been using the workflows in a call center operation, but all the stuff, all the methodologies have been developed over 30 years in this field, both business process and contact center and customer care.
Thank you.
Okay, and I wanted to respond. There was an earlier point about reducing calls coming in, and in an ITSM world, I think it was, and that's something we very much do. I mean, if we can avoid the need for calls altogether, that would be great. I mean, I've had many experiences with companies that are supposed to be great at this stuff, like Amazon, for example, recently. That had a problem with one of their boxes, their cube that controls my TV and AV and all that stuff. And in point of fact, it wasn't working. I called them. I went to the IVR. They asked me what the problem was. I said, it's not changing channels for me properly on my Fire TV cube. And they sent me to an agent. Well, frankly, the IVR could have handled it. It's very simple. The agent sent me, I spoke to 4 separate agents before I had this situation resolved. With InteractCoach, it would have been resolved with the first agent. With our guidance, it might have been resolved in the IVR, in the interactive voice response system. So I think I've taken up more than my allotment of time, so forgive me for that. But thank you very much for your attention, your interest, insightful comments. I really appreciate it. And for further information, please do contact Cecile or contact me directly at the emails below.
Mr.
And,
Seeger,
wishing you all the best.
Mr.
Yes.
Seeger, may I ask one last question? How big is your company?
It's me and a partner that I've worked with for 20 years, and I mean, it could be up to I've worked with subcontractors up to a dozen. I worked with DirecTV, with Deloitte, for example. I led an engagement with them to redesign re-engineer their entire technology architecture with 200 people. And I co-led that with the CIO and with Deloitte. So we expand infinitely as needed, is the answer.
That's great. Thank you.
Thanks, Carol. Kind of like we do, Michael. We expand infinitely as required.
Exactly.
Thank you very much for your presentation. Thanks everybody for all of your questions. We do have Mike Haley queuing up to provide an update on CBP. So as Michael Seeger mentioned, if you do have further questions regarding his presentation today, do feel free to reach out to me, and I'll put you in touch with him or reach out to Kevin. And of course, his slides will be in the recording from today, so his contact information and everything is in there. And Michael, I think we could probably put your contact information in the chat panel as well, if you'd like to do that while we're switching over to Mike Haley. And I am going to see if I can find my screen sharing thing. And Mike Haley, are you ready for me to change to you?
Yeah.
Okay, great. So thank you again, Michael, very much for providing this presentation. I think it generated a lot of questions and interest from our attendees, and hopefully some follow-up questions as well.
Great. Looking forward to it. Thank you.